My name is Adele Hadid, 31 years old, and my graduation day from medical school almost became the darkest moment of my life when my mother chose my twin sister over me. After promising to attend my ceremony, she backed out when Sophia suddenly announced her engagement party the same day. My sister, who had spent years undermining me, had won again, or so I thought. What my mother never expected was who would step in to take her place. And her reaction when she discovered the truth still gives me chills to this day. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear more family drama stories that will make yours seem normal. Growing up in an affluent neighborhood in Westchester County, New York, our family appeared flawless from the outside. Our colonial mansion with perfectly manicured gardens and circular driveway was featured in the local lifestyle magazine twice. Mother would host elaborate dinner parties where politicians and business executives mingled on our marble terraces, while father networked his way through conversations that would later translate into lucrative deals for his law firm. My mother, Isabella Hadid, was the epitome of high society elegance. Standing tall at 5 feet 8 inches with her signature blonde bob and piercing blue eyes, she commanded attention wherever she went. A former Miss Connecticut runner-up, she had married my father, Marcus Hadid, a prominent corporate attorney, when she was 24. By 30, she had given birth to twins and dedicated herself to being the perfect wife and socialite, organizing charity galas and serving on the boards of multiple foundations. "Adele, darling," she would tell me while adjusting my posture at formal dinners, "excellence is not an option in this family. It's an expectation." Her manicured fingers would straighten my dress or fix my hair with mechanical precision. "We are Hadids. We do not settle for second place." Those words shaped my entire childhood. While other children played carelessly, I was enrolled in piano lessons, ballet, French tutoring, and advanced mathematics. Every activity was scheduled, every achievement measured against impossible standards. Mother would sit in the front row at my recitals, taking notes in her leather planner, later discussing my performance with the cool analysis of a corporate executive reviewing quarterly reports. My father, Marcus, was equally demanding but in a different way. Standing 6 feet 2 inches with salt and pepper hair and an imposing presence, he ran his law firm with the same authoritarian style he brought home. Breakfast conversations revolved around current events, with pop quizzes about international politics and economic theory. "Intelligence without application is worthless," he would declare while reviewing my report cards. "Your mind is your greatest asset, but only if you use it properly." Despite the pressure, I thrived under their expectations during my early years. I consistently earned straight A's, won first place in science fairs, and received awards for academic excellence. Mother would frame my certificates and display them prominently in the living room, though her praise was always measured and conditional. "Well done, Adele. Now, what's your plan for improving even further?" My twin sister Sophia was my polar opposite in every conceivable way. Where I was studious and introspective, she was vivacious and social. While I spent hours in the library, she charmed her way through life with an easy smile and infectious laugh. Sophia had inherited Mother's natural beauty and charisma, combined with an innate ability to make everyone around her feel special. The dynamics between us were complicated from birth, but they became toxic as we entered adolescence. Mother seemed to gravitate toward Sophia's effortless charm, while expecting me to earn every ounce of approval through achievement. "Sophia has such natural grace," Mother would comment while watching my sister effortlessly work a room at family gatherings. "It's a gift you can't teach." Meanwhile, my accomplishments were treated as basic expectations rather than celebrations. When I won the state science competition at 16, Mother's response was, "Wonderful, dear. Now focus on the national level." When Sophia got a B+ on a history test she barely studied for, it was met with proud phone calls to relatives about her natural intelligence. The inequality became more pronounced during our senior year of high school. While I was accepted to Harvard with early admission and a partial academic scholarship, Sophia chose to attend a prestigious but less academically rigorous liberal arts college in Vermont. The family celebration for my Harvard acceptance was a quiet dinner at home. Sophia's college acceptance was marked with a party that filled our entire house with friends and extended family. "Harvard is wonderful, darling," Mother said during my so-called celebration dinner, "but remember that academic success is just one measure of a person's worth. Your sister has qualities that can't be measured by test scores." The subtext was clear. Sophia was the complete package, while I was merely book-smart. College provided a blessed escape from the constant comparisons and conditional love. At Harvard, I discovered a world where intelligence was valued, where professors appreciated my analytical mind, and where I could build relationships based on mutual respect rather than family obligation. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely appreciated for who I was rather than what I achieved. During my sophomore year, I met James Morrison in organic chemistry lab. Tall and lanky with kind brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he was pursuing a pre-med track like me, but with a specialty interest in pediatric surgery. Our study sessions in the library gradually evolved into long conversations about medicine, philosophy, and our shared dreams of making a difference in the world. James came from a middle-class family in Boston. His father, Robert, was a high school principal, and his mother, Catherine, taught elementary school. They welcomed me into their modest but warm home with the kind of unconditional acceptance I had never experienced. Catherine would cook elaborate Sunday dinners where conversation flowed naturally, laughter was encouraged, and no one kept score of accomplishments. "You're studying to be a doctor?" Robert asked during my first dinner with them, his eyes lighting up with genuine interest. "That's incredible. What kind of medicine interests you most?" When I explained my passion for emergency medicine, he listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and expressing admiration for my dedication. The contrast with my own family's reactions was stark. Through 4 years of undergraduate study and the early years of medical school, James became my anchor. He understood the pressure I felt from my family without trying to fix it, held me when phone calls home left me feeling inadequate, and celebrated my achievements with the enthusiasm my own parents rarely showed. Meanwhile, my relationship with my family grew increasingly strained. Monthly phone calls with Mother were exercises in careful navigation, where I shared news of my academic progress while she updated me on Sophia's social conquests and romantic adventures. "Your sister is dating the most charming young man," Mother would gush. "He's from the Wellington family, you know, the shipping fortune. They make such a beautiful couple." Sophia had graduated with a degree in communications and was working for a high-end event planning company in Manhattan, organizing parties and fundraisers for wealthy clients. While my days were consumed with medical textbooks and clinical rotations, hers were filled with fashion shows, gallery openings, and networking events. Mother's Instagram feed was dominated by photos of Sophia at glamorous venues, always perfectly dressed and surrounded by influential people. The few times I visited home during medical school were uncomfortable reminders of my outsider status within my own family. Dinner conversations inevitably centered on Sophia's latest romantic interest or professional triumph, with my medical school progress treated as a footnote. "Adele is doing well in her studies," Mother would mention briefly before launching into detailed descriptions of Sophia's recent vacation to the Hamptons or her feature in a society magazine. By my 3rd year of medical school, I had limited my visits home to major holidays and started building a life centered entirely around my studies, James, and the family I had found within his warm, accepting clan. The wounds from my biological family remained, but I had learned to find validation and love elsewhere. James proposed during our final year of medical school. We had just finished a grueling 72-hour shift in the emergency department, and I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and covered in coffee stains. He found me in the hospital break room, staring blankly at a vending machine. "Adele," he said softly, sitting beside me on the uncomfortable plastic chair. "I know this isn't the most romantic setting, but I can't wait another day." He pulled a small velvet box from his coat pocket. "These past 6 years have been the best of my life. Your compassion, your brilliance, your strength, they inspire me every single day. I want to spend the rest of my life supporting your dreams and building new ones together." Will you marry me? The ring was perfect, a simple but elegant solitaire that reflected light beautifully under the harsh fluorescent hospital lighting. James later told me he had chosen it because it reminded him of my personality, classic, brilliant, and enduring. In that sterile break room surrounded by the chaos of hospital life, I felt a happiness so pure it brought tears to my eyes. Yes, I whispered, letting him slide the ring onto my finger. Absolutely yes. The next morning, I called my mother to share the news. After our usual exchange of pleasantries, I took a deep breath and delivered the announcement. Mother, I wanted you to know that James proposed last night and I said yes. The pause that followed was telling. When Mother finally responded, her tone was polite but distant, as if I had informed her about a minor scheduling change rather than a life-altering milestone. Oh, how nice for you, dear. He seems like a stable choice. Have you set a date? No excitement, no questions about the proposal, no offer to help with planning. Just clinical efficiency wrapped in the thinnest veneer of maternal interest. We're thinking about next spring, I replied, trying to mask my disappointment. After we finish our residency applications. That sounds sensible. Let me know when you have specific details so I can check my calendar. After hanging up, I sat in James's apartment fighting back tears of frustration and hurt. He found me there and immediately understood the source of my distress. She'll come around, he assured me, though his voice lacked conviction. Once she sees how happy we are together. Sophia's reaction was even more revealing. When I texted her the news with a photo of the ring, her response came hours later, a single congratulations emoji followed by looks nice. Talk soon. No phone call, no excitement, no interest in details. The stark contrast with how she had reacted to news of my college acceptance, or any achievement that didn't overshadow her own, was impossible to ignore. Despite the lukewarm response from my family, James and I proceeded with planning our wedding. We selected a date in late May, giving us 6 months to organize everything while managing our final year of medical school and the stress of residency applications. The timing worked perfectly for James's family, my close friends from medical school, and importantly, my mother confirmed she was available. We sent save-the-date cards 4 months in advance, wanting to give everyone adequate notice for travel planning. Mother received hers and during our next phone call actually sounded somewhat engaged. I've marked it in my calendar, she said. It will be lovely to meet James's family properly. The following months were consumed with venue hunting, catering tastings, and dress fittings, all while maintaining our demanding academic schedules. We found a beautiful botanical garden in Connecticut that offered both indoor and outdoor ceremony options, with reception facilities that could accommodate our 120 guests comfortably. James's mother, Catherine, insisted on accompanying me to dress appointments, offering support and enthusiasm that my own mother never volunteered to provide. "You're going to be absolutely stunning," she said with tears in her eyes as I emerged from the fitting room in an elegant A-line gown with delicate lace sleeves. "James is going to be speechless when he sees you walking down the aisle." In that moment, the absence of my own mother felt like a physical ache. Catherine seemed to sense my emotion, reaching over to squeeze my hand gently. "Your mother is missing out on something beautiful by not being more involved," she said quietly. "But we're here and we love you like our own daughter." As we continued planning, I also grew closer to James's uncle, Professor David Morrison, his father's older brother. David was in his late 50s, a retired literature professor from Boston University with silver hair and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He had never married or had children, dedicating his life to academia and his extended family. At family gatherings, David always made time to engage me in meaningful conversation about literature, current events, or my medical studies. Unlike many older relatives who asked perfunctory questions, David listened with genuine interest and offered thoughtful insights. "You have a remarkable ability to synthesize complex information," he told me after I explained a challenging case study from my surgery rotation. "That's going to serve your patients well." During one Sunday dinner at the Morrison family home, David mentioned that he had already booked his hotel room for the wedding weekend. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," he said with a warm smile. I've even purchased a new suit for the occasion. Navy blue, I'm told it's appropriate for spring weddings. His enthusiasm was infectious and stood in sharp contrast to my own family's mechanical responses. Meanwhile, my mother's involvement in wedding planning remained minimal. She would answer direct questions when asked but never initiated conversations about details or offered assistance. When I showed her photos of potential centerpieces during a rare visit home, she glanced at them briefly before commenting, "They all look suitable, dear. I'm sure whatever you choose will be fine." 3 months before the wedding, I began noticing troubling signs on Sophia's social media accounts. She was posting cryptic messages about exciting announcements and big changes coming soon. When I called to ask about these posts, she was evasively cheerful. "Oh, you know me, just being dramatic about work stuff," she said with a laugh. "Nothing for you to worry about, big sister." But as the weeks progressed, I noticed more telling signs. Photos of Sophia trying on white dresses, captions about special events in May, and comments from friends asking about her big day. A knot of anxiety began forming in my stomach, though I tried to dismiss it as pre-wedding paranoia. The bomb dropped exactly 10 weeks before my wedding. Sophia called on a Saturday morning, her voice dripping with false sweetness and barely contained excitement. "Adele, darling, I wanted to give you a heads up before you see it on social media. Bradley proposed last night, and we've decided to have our engagement party on May 24th. My blood turned to ice. "Sophia, that's my wedding date. You received the save the date card 4 months ago." "Did I?" She replied with feigned surprise. "I honestly don't remember. Anyway, it's just an engagement party, not an actual wedding. The timing is just a coincidence. Bradley's family owns a country club, and that was the only date available this spring. Mother is so excited to help me plan it." "Mother is helping you plan it?" The words hit me like a physical blow. "Sophia, you're asking people to choose between my wedding and your engagement party." "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she said dismissively. "It's just a party. People can do both if they want to. Besides, engagement parties are usually earlier in the day. I'm sure there won't be any conflict with your evening ceremony." But as I pressed for details, the truth became clear. Sophia's engagement party was scheduled from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. at an exclusive country club 2 hours away from our wedding venue. The timing made it physically impossible for anyone to attend both events, especially since our ceremony was at 5 p.m. and required guests to arrive by 4:30. After hanging up, I immediately called my mother, hoping she would see through Sophia's manipulation and put a stop to it. "Mother, did you know Sophia scheduled her engagement party on my wedding day?" "Yes, she mentioned it," Mother replied casually. "It's unfortunate timing, but these things happen. The country club is very exclusive. They only had that one date available." "But how will you attend both events? You're supposed to be at my ceremony." "I'll work something out, Adele. There's no need to make this more complicated than it is. Perhaps you could push your ceremony back a few hours to accommodate Sophia's party." The suggestion that I rearrange my wedding to fit around Sophia's engagement party was so outrageous that I was momentarily speechless. "Mother, this is my wedding day. The vendors are booked, guests have made travel arrangements, everything is set." "I understand it's inconvenient, dear, but family comes first. Sophia's engagement is a significant milestone that deserves celebration." "And my wedding isn't a significant milestone?" "Of course it is, but you've always been so independent. I assumed you had everything under control without needing much family involvement." The conversation ended with Mother promising to figure out the logistics, but I could already sense where her loyalties lay. Over the following weeks, her phone calls became increasingly focused on Sophia's engagement party planning, with my wedding relegated to brief, obligatory inquiries. "The florist Sophia chose is absolutely divine," Mother gushed during one call. "And the catering menu, it's like something from a 5-star restaurant. Bradley's family spares no expense." When I tried to redirect the conversation to my own wedding plans, Mother's responses were perfunctory at best. "That sounds lovely, dear. I'm sure it will all come together nicely." 6 weeks before the wedding, the inevitable happened. Mother called on a Tuesday evening, her tone formal and apologetic but lacking genuine remorse. Adele, I need to discuss the situation with your wedding and Sophia's engagement party. The phrase situation told me everything I needed to know before she continued. I've been thinking about the logistics and I don't see how I can make both events work. Sophia's party is so important to her, and as her mother, I need to be there for the entire celebration. The timing just doesn't allow for me to attend your ceremony. You're choosing not to come to my wedding, I said, my voice barely steady. It's not about choosing, she replied defensively. It's about practical considerations. Sophia needs me there and the travel between venues is impossible. Perhaps James's mother could help you with anything you need that day. Perhaps James's mother could help. As if the mother of the bride was an interchangeable role that could be delegated to someone else's family member. I see, I managed to whisper. I'll still try to make it to your reception, she added, as if offering a generous compromise. If Sophia's party ends early enough, I might be able to drive over for the dancing portion. After we hung up, I collapsed on my apartment floor and sobbed until I had no tears left. James found me there an hour later when he returned from his clinical rotation, immediately dropping his bag and rushing to my side. She's not coming, I choked out between sobs. She's choosing Sophia's engagement party over my wedding. James held me tightly, his own anger evident in the tension of his shoulders. I'm so sorry, Adele. You deserve so much better than this. That night, as we lay in bed discussing our options, James gently suggested postponing the wedding. We could move it to another date, he offered. Give your mother no excuse to miss it. The thought had crossed my mind, but something inside me rebelled against it. No, I said firmly. I'm not rearranging our wedding because of Sophia's manipulations. That's exactly what she wants, to prove that she can control our family's priorities even on my most important day. The next morning, Catherine called to discuss final wedding details and immediately sensed something was wrong. I found myself pouring out the entire story over the phone, my voice breaking as I explained my mother's decision. Oh, sweetheart, Catherine said, her voice filled with maternal warmth and indignation. I can't believe any mother would do this to her daughter. This is your wedding day, one of the most important moments of your life. I don't know what to do, I admitted. Part of me wants to call and beg her to reconsider, but I know that would just validate Sophia's belief that she can manipulate our entire family. Listen to me carefully, Catherine said firmly. This is your day, yours and James's. Don't let anyone diminish its importance or your joy. Your mother is making a choice she'll regret for the rest of her life, but that's her burden to carry, not yours. Her words gave me strength, but a crucial question remained. Who would walk me down the aisle? The father-daughter tradition had always seemed antiquated to me, but I had planned for my mother to accompany me as a symbol of her support and blessing. The thought of walking alone felt like a public acknowledgement of my family's rejection. Later that week, I received an unexpected call from David, James's uncle. James told me what happened, he said gently. I hope you don't mind him sharing the situation. I wanted you to know that my thoughts are with you during this difficult time. Thank you, David. It helps to know that someone understands. I understand more than you might realize, he said quietly. Family disappointments cut the deepest because they come from the people who are supposed to love us unconditionally. Something in his tone suggested personal experience with such pain. It sounds like you've been through something similar. A pause. When I completed my doctoral dissertation and was offered my first teaching position at Boston University, my parents refused to attend my graduation ceremony. They felt I was wasting my education on impractical pursuits instead of joining the family insurance business. Some wounds never fully heal, but I learned that we can build beautiful, meaningful lives despite the people who fail to support us. His words brought fresh tears to my eyes, but they were tears of understanding rather than self-pity. Thank you for sharing that with me, David. It helps to know I'm not alone in experiencing this kind of family rejection. You're never alone, Adele. Family isn't just about blood relations. It's about the people who show up for you when it matters most, who celebrate your victories and support you through challenges. You have that family. It might not be the one you were born into, but it's the one you've chosen and the one that has chosen you. 1 week before the wedding, I hit an emotional breaking point. Despite the excitement of friends arriving in town and final vendor confirmations falling into place, I found myself sitting on my bathroom floor at 2 a.m., overwhelmed by grief and anger. The wedding I had planned was coming together beautifully, except for the gaping hole left by my mother's absence. The next morning, Catherine suggested we meet for lunch, just the two of us. "James is worried about you," she said as we settled into a quiet corner booth at a small cafe near the hospital. "We all are. You've been putting on a brave face, but I can see how much this is hurting you." "I keep trying to convince myself it doesn't matter," I replied, stirring my tea without drinking it. "I tell myself I'm better off without her there if this is how she chooses to treat me. But then I think about walking down the aisle without any family support, and I feel completely abandoned." Catherine listened patiently as I voiced my fears and frustrations. "It's okay to feel abandoned, Adele. What your mother is doing is wrong, and you have every right to be hurt and angry. Don't let anyone tell you to get over it or move on before you're ready." We ordered lunch, though I had little appetite. As we picked at our salads, Catherine seemed to be gathering her thoughts for something important. "There's something I think you should know," she finally said. "Something about David that might help you understand why he reached out to you." I looked up, curious. "What about him?" "David has faced more family rejection than most people could handle," she explained. "Not only did his parents refuse to support his academic career, but they also cut him off financially when he refused to join the family business. He put himself through graduate school working multiple jobs and eating 1 meal a day some weeks. I had no idea David had struggled so much. He never talks about his childhood or his parents." "That's because it's still painful for him," Catherine continued. "But here's what's relevant to your situation. When Robert and I got married, my own father refused to attend because he disapproved of my choice to marry a mere teacher instead of the wealthy businessman he had picked out for me." The parallel to my situation was striking. "What did you do?" "David offered to walk me down the aisle," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "He told me, 'Catherine, you deserve to be given away by someone who celebrates your happiness, not someone who judges your choices.' He had barely enough money for a decent suit, but he showed up for me when my own father wouldn't." The implication of her story was clear, but she was too tactful to make the suggestion directly. "Do you think David would consider?" I started hesitantly. "I think it would mean the world to him," Catherine interrupted gently. "But this has to be your decision, made for the right reasons. Don't ask him just because you feel obligated to have someone walk you down the aisle. Ask him because you genuinely want him there, because you value his support and presence in your life." I spent the next day considering the idea, turning it over in my mind from every angle. David had always shown genuine interest in my life and career. He had been nothing but supportive and kind since I entered James's family. There was something beautiful about being walked down the aisle by someone who truly understood family rejection and had chosen to create his own definition of love and support. That evening, I called David and asked if we could meet for coffee the following day. He agreed immediately, suggesting we meet at a bookstore cafe near Boston University where he used to grade papers during his teaching years. When I arrived, David was already there, a stack of novels on the table and 2 coffee cups waiting. "I took the liberty of ordering your usual," he said with a warm smile. "Cappuccino with an extra shot and a dash of cinnamon, if I remember correctly." The fact that he remembered such a specific detail about my preferences only confirmed what I already knew about his character. He paid attention to the people he cared about, he remembered what mattered to them, and he showed up consistently with both physical presence and emotional support. After some pleasant conversation about the books he had purchased and his thoughts on current literature, I gathered my courage. "David, there's something I wanted to ask you, and please feel free to say no if it feels inappropriate or uncomfortable." He set down his coffee cup and gave me his full attention. "Ask me anything, Adele." I took a deep breath. Catherine told me how you walked her down the aisle when her father refused to attend her wedding. Given what's happening with my own mother, I was wondering if you would consider doing the same for me." David's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, honor, and something that looked like profound gratitude. For a long moment he seemed unable to speak, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Adele," he finally said, his voice thick with emotion, "I cannot adequately express what this request means to me. Are you absolutely certain? This should be a moment shared with someone truly special to you." "I am completely certain," I replied, feeling more confident with each word. "You've shown me more genuine care and interest in these few years than my mother has shown in decades. You listen when I talk about my work, you remember details about my life, and you've never made me feel like I had to earn your approval or affection. I would be honored to have you walk me down the aisle." David reached across the table and took my hands in his. "Then I accept with my whole heart. It would be one of the greatest privileges of my life to stand beside you on your wedding day." The weight that had been crushing my chest for weeks suddenly lifted. David was right. Family was about who showed up, not who shared your DNA. The final week before the wedding passed in a blur of last-minute preparations and arriving guests. Friends from medical school filled the hotel lobby with laughter and excited conversations about residency programs and future plans. James's extended family arrived from various parts of New England, all eager to celebrate and welcome me into their clan. Throughout it all, I felt a new sense of peace about my decision. I made one final attempt to reach out to my mother, calling her 3 days before the wedding. "Mother, I just wanted to confirm whether you're still planning to attend any part of my wedding." "I'm hoping to make it to the reception," she replied, sounding distracted. "It depends on how Sophia's party goes. She's been so stressed about the planning, I need to be there to support her." The irony was staggering. Sophia, who had never had to work for approval or support, was getting unlimited maternal attention for a party, while I, who had spent my entire life trying to earn my mother's love, was getting conditional promises for my wedding reception. "I also wanted you to know that I've asked David Morrison to walk me down the aisle," I said, keeping my voice steady. A pause. "Who is David Morrison?" "James's uncle. The literature professor. He's been very supportive throughout our relationship and engagement." "I see. Well, I suppose someone has to do it if I can't be there on time." Her dismissive response only confirmed that I had made the right choice. The night before the wedding, we held our rehearsal dinner at a charming restaurant overlooking the Connecticut River. David attended, looking distinguished in a charcoal gray suit, and gave a toast that moved many guests to tears. "To Adele and James," he said, raising his glass with a warm smile. "True love is not just about finding the right person, but about creating a family of choice that supports your growth and celebrates your joy. I have watched your relationship develop over these years, and the respect, kindness, and partnership you show each other gives me tremendous hope for your future together. Tomorrow, I have the extraordinary honor of walking this remarkable young woman down the aisle to marry the man she loves. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your story." As guests applauded and wiped away tears, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the family I had found and chosen. Later that evening, I checked social media one last time and saw extensive posts from Sophia about her engagement party preparations. The photos revealed an over-the-top celebration clearly designed more for social media attention than genuine joy: elaborate floral arrangements, a champagne fountain, and multiple costume changes throughout the day. The knowledge should have hurt, but instead I felt a strange sense of clarity. I finally understood that Sophia's actions were driven by insecurity and jealousy so deep that she was willing to sabotage her own sister's wedding day. I closed the app and turned off my phone, determined not to let her negativity touch me on the eve of my wedding. I woke up on my wedding day to golden sunlight streaming through the hotel curtains and the excited chatter of my bridesmaids setting up the getting ready suite. My 3 closest friends from medical school had arrived early with gourmet coffee and fresh pastries, their enthusiasm infectious despite my underlying anxiety about my family situation. The morning passed quickly with hairstyling, makeup, and the ritual of getting into my wedding dress. As my friend Sarah was having her makeup touched up, my phone chimed with a text from my mother. Hope your day goes smoothly. Sophia's party starts at 2. We'll try to make your reception if timing allows. Congratulations. Not I love you. Not I'm proud of you. Not even I wish I could be there. Just logistical information and an impersonal congratulations that could have been sent to an acquaintance. I handed the phone to my bridesmaid Emma, unable to form a response. She's unbelievable, Emma muttered after reading the message. Try not to let her selfishness ruin your perfect day. You're about to marry the love of your life, and you're surrounded by people who actually care about you. Around noon, there was a gentle knock on the suite door. When Sarah opened it, David was standing there in his elegant navy suit, holding a small wrapped package and looking slightly nervous. I hope I'm not interrupting the preparations, he said politely. I wanted to give this to Adele before the ceremony and make sure she's feeling ready for this afternoon. I invited him into the sitting area of the suite while my bridesmaids discreetly moved to the bedroom to give us privacy. You look absolutely radiant, David said, his eyes warm with paternal pride. James is going to be speechless when he sees you. Thank you for coming by, I replied, touched by his thoughtfulness. And thank you again for everything you're doing today. David handed me the small package. I wanted you to have this to carry with you today. It belonged to my grandmother, Rose Morrison, and I've been saving it for a special occasion. Inside was a delicate vintage locket on a thin silver chain, engraved with tiny roses and containing a small photo of a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Something old, David explained softly. Grandmother Rose was a teacher like me, and she believed that education and kindness were the greatest gifts we could give the world. She would have adored you. Tears welled in my eyes at the sentiment and the symbolism. It's beautiful, David. I'm honored to wear it. There's one more thing, he added, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small jewelry box. This is from Catherine and Robert. They wanted you to have something to remember this day. Inside was a delicate pearl bracelet with a small charm shaped like a stethoscope. They remembered you saying how much your medical career means to you, David explained. Catherine thought you might like to have a reminder of your professional calling on your wedding day. The thoughtfulness overwhelmed me. These people, who had no biological obligation to care about me, had shown more consideration for my happiness than my own mother. Please thank them for me, I managed through my tears. This means everything. As the afternoon progressed and the ceremony time approached, I tried to focus on the joy of marrying James rather than the absence of my biological family. My bridesmaids helped me into my gown, a stunning A-line dress with delicate lace sleeves and a flowing train, and arranged my hair in an elegant updo adorned with small white flowers. With David's locket around my neck, Catherine's bracelet on my wrist, and my grandmother's pearl earrings, my something old, I felt ready to walk down the aisle surrounded by the love and support of my chosen family. At 4:30, the photographer knocked for final pre-ceremony photos. As we finished the last shots, Catherine appeared at the door with tears in her eyes. "Oh, Adele," she breathed, "you are absolutely stunning. David is waiting in the antechamber, and I can tell he's both honored and nervous about walking you down the aisle." 10 minutes before the ceremony, I made my way to the small antechamber adjacent to the main ceremony space. Through the glass doors, I could see our 120 guests seated in white chairs arranged in perfect rows, the floral arch where James waited with the officiant, and the string quartet playing soft classical music. David was waiting for me, looking distinguished but slightly nervous. When he saw me, his expression transformed into one of pure pride and paternal warmth. "Ready?" he asked gently, offering his arm. I nodded, suddenly too emotional to speak. As the opening notes of Pachelbel's canon began to play, the doors opened before us. Walking down the aisle with David beside me, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. There was still a sharp pang of sadness that my mother had chosen to miss this moment, but it was overshadowed by profound gratitude for the man who had stepped in with such grace and dignity. James's face as he watched me approach was worth every moment of family drama, every tear shed, every sleepless night of planning. His eyes shone with love and wonder, and in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that we were creating our own family, one built on mutual respect, genuine care, and unwavering support. The ceremony was everything I had dreamed it would be. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, promising to support each other's dreams, communicate honestly through challenges, and choose each other every single day. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the applause from our guests felt like a warm embrace surrounding us. The cocktail hour and reception that followed were filled with laughter, heartfelt toasts, and dancing. Robert gave a moving speech welcoming me to the Morrison family, and David's toast brought tears to many eyes as he spoke about the privilege of watching true love flourish and the importance of chosen family. By 8 p.m., it was clear that my mother would not make even the reception. I tried not to let it dampen my spirits as James and I shared our first dance to At Last by Etta James, surrounded by the people who had truly shown up for us. As the evening progressed, I noticed my cousin Rachel arrive looking flustered and upset. Rachel was my father's niece, and while we weren't extremely close, she had always been kind to me and maintained relationships with both sides of our extended family. After greeting her with a hug, I commented on her late arrival and distressed appearance. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she said, looking genuinely troubled. "I stopped by Sophia's engagement party first, thinking I could attend both events. But Adele, there's something you need to know." She guided me to a quiet corner of the reception hall, her expression serious and somewhat angry. "That party today, it wasn't what Sophia told everyone it was." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "It wasn't really an engagement party," Rachel said bluntly. "I mean, yes, she's engaged to Bradley, but this whole elaborate celebration was completely manufactured. She told everyone it was a surprise party that Bradley's family was throwing, but I overheard her arguing with Bradley about the cost. He had no idea she was planning anything this extravagant." The implications were staggering. "So she planned this entire thing herself?" Rachel nodded grimly. "That's not even the worst part. I heard her talking to your mother in the bathroom. Sophia was laughing about how she had finally found a way to put Adele in her place, and how mother always chooses the daughter who needs her more." "What exactly did my mother say?" I asked, dreading the answer. "She was telling Sophia how proud she was that Sophia had taken initiative to ensure her engagement got proper recognition, and how Adele was always so independent that she probably preferred having a smaller, more intimate family presence anyway." The casual way Rachel delivered this devastating information made it somehow worse. My mother had not only chosen Sophia's manufactured crisis over my genuine milestone, but she was actively participating in the narrative that I didn't deserve or want family support. "There's more," Rachel continued reluctantly. "I overheard Sophia on the phone with someone, I think it was her maid of honor, talking about how she had been planning this for months. She said something about finally getting the attention she deserved, and how Adele always thought she was so much better than everyone else." "Did my mother hear any of this?" "Some of it, yes. And she didn't seem bothered by it at all. If anything, she seemed to agree with Sophia's assessment that you had gotten enough attention over the years with all your academic achievements." As Rachel shared these revelations, I felt a strange sense of validation mixed with profound sadness. For years, I had questioned whether I was being paranoid about Sophia's jealousy and my mother's favoritism. Now I had confirmation that not only were my perceptions accurate, but the situation was even worse than I had imagined. "I'm so sorry, Adele," Rachel said, tears forming in her eyes. "I debated whether to tell you any of this, especially on your wedding day. But I couldn't stand the thought of you wondering if you had somehow misunderstood the situation." I hugged my cousin tightly. "Thank you for telling me. It actually helps to know the truth, even if it's painful." As the reception continued, I tried to process this new information while maintaining my composure and enjoying my celebration. James noticed my distraction and squeezed my hand during our second dance. "Everything okay?" he whispered. "I'll tell you later," I murmured back. "Right now, I just want to focus on us and all the people who actually showed up to celebrate our love." The reception was winding down around 10 p.m. when I noticed a commotion near the entrance. My heart skipped a beat when I recognized my mother's tall, elegant figure entering the reception hall, looking impeccably dressed but somehow out of place among the relaxed, joyful atmosphere of our celebration. James noticed her at the same time and instinctively moved closer to me. "Do you want me to handle this?" I shook my head. "No, I need to face this myself." My mother approached with her characteristic poise, carrying a large gift bag and wearing the kind of smile she reserved for social obligations. "Darling," she said, leaning in for an air kiss that barely made contact with my cheek. "Congratulations. I'm sorry I'm so late. Sophia's party ran much longer than expected." The casual way she referenced missing my entire wedding ceremony felt like a slap. "I'm surprised you made it at all," I replied, keeping my voice level despite the storm of emotions churning inside me. "Of course I made it," she said, as if arriving 3 hours late to her daughter's wedding reception was perfectly reasonable. "I wouldn't miss your special day." The irony was breathtaking. She had already missed my special day. She had missed seeing me get ready, missed walking me down the aisle, missed the ceremony, missed the cocktail hour, missed dinner, and missed most of the dancing. She had shown up for the last hour when most guests were already saying their goodbyes. "I brought you a gift from Sophia and me," she continued, thrusting the bag toward me. "Crystal champagne flutes from Tiffany." "Thank you," I said, setting the bag aside without opening it. The expensive gift felt like an attempt to purchase forgiveness rather than a genuine gesture of love. An uncomfortable silence fell between us before she asked the question I had been dreading. "So who ended up walking you down the aisle? I noticed in the photos on social media that someone was with you." "David Morrison," I replied. "James's uncle." My mother's expression shifted to one of confusion and slight disapproval. "You had a stranger walk you down the aisle?" "He's not a stranger to me," I said firmly. "He's been part of my life for years, and he's shown more interest in my happiness and well-being than you have in a very long time." Before my mother could respond, David approached our small group, having noticed the tension from across the room. "Mrs. Hadid," he said politely, extending his hand. "I'm David Morrison. It's nice to finally meet you." My mother shook his hand with cool politeness but didn't return his warm greeting. "Mr. Morrison, I understand you walked my daughter down the aisle today." "I had that extraordinary honor, yes," David replied with dignity. "Adele is a remarkable young woman, and it was a privilege to support her on such an important day." "I'm sure it was lovely," my mother said dismissively, "though I find it unusual that my daughter felt the need to have a stranger take my place at her wedding." The insult was delivered with my mother's characteristic passive-aggressive precision, technically polite but unmistakably cutting. David remained composed, but I could see the flash of anger in his eyes. "With respect, Mrs. Hadid," David said calmly, "I didn't take anyone's place. I simply stepped in when Adele needed someone who could prioritize her happiness over other commitments." The truth of his words hung in the air like a challenge. My mother's face flushed slightly, but before she could respond, Rachel joined our group, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Aunt Isabella," Rachel said carefully, "I'm surprised to see you here. I thought you were committed to Sophia's party all evening." "The party ended early," my mother replied curtly. "I came as soon as I could." "That's interesting," Rachel continued, her voice growing bolder, "because when I left Sophia's party an hour ago, it was still going strong. In fact, Sophia was just starting her third outfit change of the day." My mother's eyes flashed with irritation. "I don't appreciate your tone, Rachel. This is between Adele and me." "Actually, it's not just between you and Adele," I interjected, finding my voice and my courage. "Your choice to prioritize Sophia's manufactured drama over my wedding affects our entire family. And the way you've enabled Sophia's jealousy and manipulation for years has damaged relationships that might never be repaired." "I don't know what you're talking about," my mother said defensively. "I've always treated you and Sophia equally." "Equally?" I repeated, my voice rising slightly. "You missed my Harvard graduation for one of Sophia's spa weekends. You forgot my medical school white coat ceremony because Sophia had a bad breakup. And now you've missed my wedding ceremony for an engagement party that Sophia deliberately scheduled to conflict with my day. Sophia needed my support. And I didn't? I interrupted. Your daughter was getting married today, and you chose not to be there for the most important moment. David walked me down the aisle because my own mother decided that Sophia's attention-seeking was more important than supporting me on my wedding day. For the first time in my adult life, my mother looked genuinely shaken. She glanced around our small group, at David's calm but protective presence, at Rachel's supportive stance, at James who had moved to stand beside me, and seemed to realize that she was completely isolated in her position. I think perhaps this conversation would be better held privately, she said stiffly. There's nothing private about your choices, I replied. You made a public statement about your priorities when you chose not to attend my wedding ceremony. Now you'll have to live with the public consequences of that decision. David stepped forward slightly, his voice gentle but firm. Mrs. Hadid, I think Adele has made her feelings clear. This is supposed to be a celebration, and I'd hate to see it end on a contentious note. My mother looked at David with barely concealed hostility. I don't need advice from a stranger about how to handle my relationship with my daughter. You're right, David replied calmly. You don't need advice from me. But you might need to consider whether your actions today align with the kind of relationship you want to have with Adele going forward. The simple truth of his words seemed to hit my mother like a physical blow. She stared at David, then at me, then back at David, as if seeing the situation clearly for the first time. I should go, she said abruptly. It's obvious I'm not welcome here. You were welcome here at 5 p.m. when the ceremony started, I said quietly. You were welcome here at 6 p.m. for cocktails, at 7 p.m. for dinner, at 8 p.m. for toasts. You chose not to come until now when most of our celebration is over. Without another word, my mother turned and walked toward the exit, leaving her expensive gift bag on a nearby table. I watched her go with a mixture of sadness and relief, knowing that this confrontation had been years in the making. James put his arm around me as we watched her leave. Are you okay? I nodded, surprised to find that I actually was okay. For the first time in years, I feel like I stood up for myself instead of making excuses for her behavior. David squeezed my other hand gently. You handled that with remarkable grace and strength, Adele. Your mother made her choice, and now she'll have to live with the consequences. The remaining guests gathered around us for the traditional sparkler send-off, creating a magical tunnel of light as James and I ran to our waiting car. Despite the confrontation with my mother, I felt lighter and more at peace than I had in years. The truth was finally out in the open, boundaries had been established, and I was surrounded by people who genuinely valued and supported me. James and I spent 2 weeks honeymooning in Italy, exploring ancient cities and enjoying romantic dinners overlooking the Mediterranean. The distance from family drama allowed me to process everything that had happened and gain perspective on the confrontation with my mother. When we returned to Boston to begin our residencies, reality was waiting in my voicemail. There were 7 messages from my mother, each one more apologetic and desperate than the last. The final message, left just 2 days before our return, was particularly raw. Adele, I know you're probably not listening to these messages, but I need to tell you how wrong I was. After I left your reception, I went back to Sophia's party and really looked at what was happening there. It was all for show, elaborate and expensive, but completely hollow. Meanwhile, I had missed watching my daughter marry the love of her life. I can't believe I prioritized Sophia's manufactured drama over your genuine happiness. I understand if you don't want to speak to me, but I hope someday you'll give me the chance to make this right. There were no messages from Sophia, but a terse email stating she was taking some time to focus on her engagement and future wedding plans, and would be stepping back from family drama. I sat in our new apartment, listening to the messages while James unpacked our suitcases. What are you thinking? He asked when I finally turned off the phone. I'm thinking that for the first time in my life, my mother might actually understand the consequences of her choices, I replied. But I'm also thinking that I need time to decide what kind of relationship I want with her going forward, if any. Take all the time you need, James said, sitting beside me and taking my hand. You don't owe her forgiveness just because she's finally realized she was wrong. Over the following months, I maintained limited contact with my mother while focusing on my medical residency and my marriage. David continued his weekly check-in calls, offering wisdom and support without ever pressuring me about reconciling with my biological family. Forgiveness is a process, not an event, he told me during one of our conversations. And it has to happen on your timeline, not anyone else's. Don't let anyone rush you into rebuilding a relationship that caused you pain. 6 months after the wedding, my mother requested a meeting. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a quiet cafe in downtown Boston, halfway between our respective homes. She was already there when I arrived, looking older and more fragile than I remembered. She stood nervously as I approached the table. "Adele, thank you for agreeing to see me," she said, her voice shaking slightly. We ordered coffee and sat in uncomfortable silence for several minutes before she began speaking. "I don't know how to adequately apologize for missing your wedding," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "It was the biggest mistake of my life and I'll regret it forever." "What changed your mind?" I asked, genuinely curious about her shift in perspective. "After I left your reception, I went back to Sophia's party," she explained. "I really looked at what was happening there for the first time. It was all superficial, expensive decorations, elaborate food, people taking photos for social media. There was no real joy, no genuine celebration. Meanwhile, I had missed watching my daughter, my brilliant, accomplished daughter, marry a wonderful man surrounded by people who truly love her." She paused, wiping away tears. I realized that I had spent years enabling Sophia's need for attention because it was easier than addressing my own grief and inadequacy as a single parent after your father left. Sophia's constant crises made me feel needed, while your independence made me feel unnecessary. "You were never unnecessary," I said quietly. "I would have loved to have your support and encouragement. I just learned to live without it because it was never consistently available." We talked for nearly 4 hours, revisiting painful memories and misunderstandings. There were tears, recriminations, and slowly, the beginnings of understanding. "I want to try to rebuild our relationship," my mother said as we prepared to leave. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but if you're willing, I'd like to get to know the incredible woman you've become." "I need to think about it," I replied honestly. "This isn't something we can fix in one conversation, and I need to know that you're committed to real change, not just guilty feelings." Over the following year, we began a careful reconciliation process. Weekly phone calls gradually became monthly visits. I introduced her properly to James's family, including David, who displayed remarkable grace in welcoming my mother despite her previous rudeness. During one family dinner at the Morrison house, I found my mother and David in quiet conversation on the back porch. "I owe you an apology," my mother was saying. "What I said at Adele's reception was inexcusable. You showed up for my daughter when I failed to, and I should be grateful, not resentful." David nodded thoughtfully. "What matters now is that you're here, making an effort to rebuild your relationship with Adele. She's an extraordinary person, and she deserves to have her mother's love and support." Their conversation gave me hope that perhaps the wounds of the past could heal with time and genuine effort. Sophia remained largely absent from our family reconciliation, sending occasional text messages or holiday cards, but avoiding any real conversation about what had happened. She and Bradley eventually married in an elaborate ceremony that made my wedding look modest by comparison, but the marriage lasted less than 2 years. On our second wedding anniversary, James and I hosted a small dinner party to celebrate. Our table was filled with David, the Morrison family, my mother, Rachel, and several close friends from our residency programs. When it came time for toasts, David stood with his characteristic warm smile. 2 years ago, I had the extraordinary privilege of walking this remarkable young woman down the aisle to marry the man she loves. What began as a response to difficult circumstances became one of the greatest honors of my life. Adele and James, your marriage continues to inspire everyone around you with its foundation of mutual respect, genuine partnership, and unwavering support. My mother, who had listened to David's toast with tears in her eyes, stood next. "I want to thank David for stepping in when I failed my daughter," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "And I want to thank Adele for giving me the chance to be part of her life again, despite my failures. You and James have built something beautiful together, and I'm grateful to witness it." As I reflect on the journey that brought us here, I realize that sometimes life's greatest disappointments can lead to unexpected growth and healing. My mother's absence on my wedding day led to David's presence, which in turn created a bridge for rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms. The family I have now includes both those I was born to and those I chose. All imperfect, all valuable in their own ways, but all committed to showing up when it matters most. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing harmful behavior. It means freeing yourself from the burden of resentment while establishing boundaries that protect your well-being and allow for genuine change. Most importantly, I discovered that the person who walks you down the aisle should be someone who has walked beside you through life's challenges, supporting and celebrating you unconditionally. Sometimes that person shares your DNA, and sometimes they enter your life through other paths. What matters is not who stands beside you on one important day, but who shows up for all the ordinary days that follow. I'm grateful to have found my tribe, the people who choose me every day just as I choose them. Sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we create through love, respect, and intentional commitment to each other's growth and happiness.